Good afternoon, America, and welcome to Vinny's Take. Today, we're going to talk about the NFL and their social justice plans for the 2020 season. We stand a week away from the Kansas City Chiefs opening up to defend their 2019 Super Bowl championship against the Houston Texans. And on the surface, I can't be more excited. I am thrilled to have sports. I'm thrilled to have football back. You know, I've been talking all along about we need sports, we need football. And I understand the need for social justice in a lot of instances. But I also stress, and I've said this time and time again, I stress the need for an honest, two-way conversation. I don't see that in a lot of the social justice discussion in 2020. I see it as their way or the highway when it comes to social justice. But let's talk about what the NFL is doing today. This is from Yahoo Sports. Frank Schwab posted at about 9:22 a.m. today. He states that the NFL and the NFL Players Association have announced plans to take actionable steps to help social justice. Now, it's good that the NFL and the NFLPA are working together. That's what we need. We do not need the NFLPA and its players going rogue as other sports leagues have done. They are going to be closing their facilities on November 3rd. No practice. That is a Tuesday. No practice. This is to help get awareness out to vote in the presidential election. They say that they will use that to help to work with their states and officials to establish polling places at NFL stadiums. That's great. In-person voting is what we need. That is fantastic. Now, this Schwab goes on to say that it's a much better than it was in 2016 when Colin Kaepernick started his kneeling, and they basically just tried to brush it under the table. And then, as he says, refused to sign him to another contract. Well, there's some misinformation there, Mr. Schwab. He visited the Baltimore Ravens facility. A contract was offered. They walked away from it. He also was under contract to the 49ers, but had an opt-out clause at the end of the 2016 season. He opted out to test the free agent matters. Also, we go into the 2019 practice where at the last minute, plans were changed that the NFL had set up, and he changed it to another entire location, and only a few teams could make it the hour drive away in Georgia to where he had switched it to. So saying that they refused to sign him, I strongly disagree. The evidence shows that he didn't want to be signed. Well, let's move on. Here is what the joint announcement between the NFL and the NFLPA state, and I'll go through them on a bulletin by bulletin basis. We already went through the voting issues. I think that's fantastic. I think it is great that they want to help get out the need to vote. Regardless of who you're going to vote for, whether it's Trump or Biden or a third-party candidate, I can't think of her name right now, Sturgeon, whatever. Get out and vote. If you're over 18 in America and you're registered and you have the ability to vote, you're a legalized citizen to vote, do it. I plan to. In the days leading up to the election, we will continue to sponsor nonpartisan educational programs to ensure that our players, staff, and families know how to register, how to obtain the absentee voting material, and are able to vote on Election Day. That's a very important key right there, the word absentee. Absentee is fantastic because it helps you know exactly who's voting, because you have to request the absentee ballot, you have to prove who you say you are, and you get one ballot. Whereas mass mailing voting, as we've talked about in the past, especially in states like Utah or Nevada, whoever did it, I think it was Nevada, they're just mass mailing ballots out to every adult in the state, every registered voter in the state, whether they still live there or not, because voter registries, as we know, are notoriously riddled with faulty information. People who've passed away, people who've moved, people who've lost their privilege to vote. But they're going to get a ballot anyway. And again, what's to stop somebody in the household from voting that ballot anyway? Also, we will support efforts in our communities to encourage people to vote, including by working with state officials to establish polling places at our stadiums. We will also identify safe and appropriate ways in which members of the NFL family can assist in election efforts. I can't stress enough, this is another positive. This is good. We will devote the entirety of our 1-hour program on NBC next Wednesday, September 9th, to providing a platform for our players and allies to discuss the work that we are doing to advance social justice and equality. Additional details on this program will be announced at a later date. My only question with that is it going to be a communication between both sides? Are we going to bring up the fact that more and more police officers have been killed since the protests, the peaceful protests began in June, than beforehand, and the numbers far outweigh the alleged police brutality? We will see. I personally don't think I'm going to watch the program because but I'll see the highlights and whatnot. Clubs and ownership will facilitate meetings between the state and local elected officials and leaders of law enforcement to discuss steps that can be taken to reduce conflict and improve relations between law enforcement and members of the community. That's fine. That's fantastic. I always think that is a good step. I think that you need to know what's going on the other side. You need to know how the other side feels, especially those who are not in law enforcement. You need to know what is potentially going on in the officer's mind when he is in a position where he has to decide whether to shoot or not shoot. I stress very candidly that people take the training, the split-second reaction time training. You've seen videos, perhaps, of media members going into a live-action scenario training and walking out with a totally different perspective than they had going in. I also need to understand that the cops and the inner communities need to talk, need to get to know each other better, not need to be so afraid of each other. Because we hear all the time how the inner city African Americans are afraid of the police. Well, it goes both ways. Law enforcement is afraid of any situation they're going into that they don't know what's happening. The NFL and NFLPA will work together to support college education for children of the victims who will be recognized by our players. And that is an important step there, too, because the victims that the NFL is going to agree on, Jacksonville Jaguars tight end Tyler Eifert has announced that he wants to put former St. Louis police officer Daniel Dorn's name on his helmet. Daniel Dorn was killed while trying to defend a local business. He was a retired 77-year-old African-American police officer who was trying to defend a friend's pawn shop during the rioting, and he was killed. And there is no mention of his name by the mainstream media. His funeral didn't receive the live national television coverage that other funerals have. And for Tyler Eifert to do that, I strongly, strongly encourage the NFL to approve this. While I'm getting into that, let me talk for a second about there's some misinformation going around. Okay. There's some strong misinformation. Well, so I can close this so that doesn't start playing again. The announcement ended with a message from the league stating, in quotes, "We are proud of our current and former players for the extraordinary work that they do in our communities. Club owners and employees are proud to support and work alongside the players to make our country better, fairer, and more equal." Yeah, it's political jargon. It's a good statement, but it is political jargon. All right. Now, there's some misinformation. I alluded to it a few minutes ago out on Facebook. That misinformation is about in 2016, when the protesting began, and there were some protests in Dallas where some officers were killed. The Dallas Cowboys wanted to honor them, and the NFL said no. And now you see people bring that up all the time when they talk about how the NFL players will be honoring victims of police brutality. They go back to saying, well, the NFL is getting political because in 2016 they said no, they didn't allow the Dallas Cowboys to do that. Here's where the problem lies. The NFL disallowed a lot of social justice messages before 2016. You can Google that information, it's out there. The Dallas Cowboy thing did happen. But after that, the NFL changed its uniform policy and have allowed, especially in pregame warm-ups, players to wear cleats that send a message for all kinds of social justice or initiatives that the players care deeply and passionately about. So I would be willing to say we're going to find out with the Tyler Eifert thing if the NFL is really serious about allowing players to be passionate about what they care and what they perceive in. Because if they say no to Tyler Eifert using and wearing, not using, that's not the right word, but wearing Daniel Dorn's name, then that right there will send a clear message that the NFL is not truly allowing people to be passionate about any cause they care about, but only simply placating to the loud vocal movement. in my opinion, if somebody wants to come and use Colin Kaepernick's name, they should be allowed to. He was a victim of violence. If they want to use George Floyd's name, by all means, let him use it. Let him wear that name. Breonna Taylor. I have issues with Jacob Blake's name being used, but that is from a law perspective. And also the simple fact that there are so many clues and parts of this case we don't know yet. But with that said, if they want to use Colin Kaepernick's name, they want to use Daniel Dorn's name, by all means, let's use them. Let's wear them. Hell, stretch it out to any cause you want to fight for. If you want to use the name of Jim Valvano to bring awareness toward the fight against cancer, we'll see it. Keep it small. I think the problem where the NBA has made the mistake is that they're overshadowing the players. The NBA has always been about selling the star. Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, selling the star. And what the NBA has done is sort of take that away by putting in big names where the big letters where the name goes, their social justice message. Let them have it, but remember that the player earned his way there, and you got fans who want to cheer for certain players. I personally am past that. Yes, I root for Josh Allen to do great, but if Josh Allen leaves the Bills tomorrow and we get in Cam Newton, I'm going to cheer for Cam Newton as long as the person is wearing those colors. I had my idols as a kid. I've named my car the Terminator after Thurman Thomas. I had a poster of Jim Kelly up on the wall. I still wear an Ultimate Warrior t-shirt. I had my heroes. But I'm at 41 years of age. I know now that I root for the colors, not the person wearing the colors. So the NFL announced that today. Really quickly, I want to touch on another subject that was brought out yesterday. I don't have all the facts. I'm just going by the one story I read. But a fan found a loophole in the NFL Hall of Fame nomination process that allows anybody to nominate anybody for the NFL Hall of Fame under the tag of contributor. What is a contributor? Well, a contributor is anybody that provided anything to the NFL, for the betterment of football. For instance, a general manager or an owner can go into the NFL Hall of Fame. Ralph Wilson from the Buffalo Bills can go into the NFL Hall of Fame as a contributor because of what he did for the city of Buffalo, the American Football League, and eventually the NFL by bringing Buffalo back after it had been screwed out of teams twice in the 1920s and 1940s. He was brought in as a contributor. So I can nominate anybody that I want as a contributor. Well, this fan, I believe in Vermont, has decided to nominate Colin Kaepernick as a contributor for the NFL Hall of Fame. As a player, he's not eligible yet. He played in 2016. You have to go 5 years without playing. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. He would be eligible at the end of the 2021 season. And let's face it, he's not going to get in as a player. Regardless of how you feel, whether he was justifiable or non-justifiably screwed out of the NFL, he does not get in as a player. He had a couple good seasons, led the 49ers to Super Bowl, but Brad Johnson led the Buccaneers to Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer led the Ravens. Craig Morton led two teams to Super Bowls, the Broncos and Cowboys, and he's not in. But as a contributor, does Colin Kaepernick merit induction into the NFL Hall of Fame for his social justice initiatives? That would be a first. I do not believe anybody has gotten into the Hall of Fame under social justice initiatives. And personally, I don't feel he has. I know, my goodness, how can you say that? That's a racist statement. No, it is an opinion, and this is where we need discussion. Why is my opinion that Colin Kaepernick does not deserve induction into the Hall of Fame? Because I personally feel that he started his social justice initiatives when his career wound down, when his playing ability disappeared. You never heard a peep out of him while he was doing good. He did stuff. He did great charity work for his parents had lost a couple kids to a heart defect, and he did great charity work. In fact, I very much respected the kid for what he was doing before then. And I also think that even with the protest, that he took a good step by meeting with a retired military man and changing it from a sitting protest to a kneeling protest. But I think that his protest is being used in political fashion, especially after President Trump said he disagreed with it. People started kneeling en masse, to the point where now there's no communication. There is no talk. There's no dialogue between the two sides. And Kaepernick has never stepped up and said, whoa, we need to discuss things. He talked at first, but then he started wearing things like police dressed up as pigs on his socks. He pulled the stunt with a workout in Atlanta. He, in my opinion, pulled the stunt with the contracts offered to him in Baltimore. So no, I disagree. He is not Hall of Fame material. But that's my take. What's yours? Let me know in the comments. Click like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Vinny Vincent. God bless America.